Corley Moore, spending a few minutes here at the beginning to talk about the Vigilantes. If you know me, you know I love this group. And if you are not already a vigilante, you need to ask yourself why you are not. There are so many great things about being a member. You get the first look at the behind the scenes of the scrap. You get to have input on the future direction of the scrap. There are the vigilante meetups, the vigilante only swag shop, the merch discounts, the fireaways, the VIP forums, which are like scraps, but you get to log in and be involved on the screen talking to the person. It's great, man, and all the vigilantes are invited. You get the files, you get the posts, you get the questions and the polls, but the best part, besides all of that stuff, the best part is that you get to belong to a community of like-minded souls. And when you have that, when you belong to a community of like-minded souls like that, man, it is powerful. Especially in this calling, especially in this profession. When you have that, you are never alone. So go to patreon.com/thevigilantes and join today. It's $5 a month. $5 a month. I used to say it's the price of a cup of coffee, but that's not even true anymore because you can't hardly get a cup of coffee for $5 a month. It's the best value in the fire service. So go to patreon.com/thevigilantes and go sign up today. Become a member of the Cool Kids Club. Come hang out. I look forward to seeing you there.
In the demanding world of firefighting, training against real-world scenarios is crucial. Yet traditional training facilities often fall short in providing realistic, versatile, and cost-effective training solutions. Affordable Drill Towers presents a groundbreaking solution. By positioning an affordable drill tower alongside your existing Connex boxes burn buildings, a realm of realistic, multi-level training scenarios is unlocked. This integration has been adopted successfully by various fire departments, enhancing their training capabilities exponentially. Delve into the heart of live fire training scenarios within the Connex boxes, now amplified by the ADT's multi-floor access, providing an unparalleled training ground.
We started looking at Connex boxes about probably 10 years ago. To me, you can't beat them, especially for the price. The Affordable Drill Tower was the same way. We've got 6 floors, we've got standpipes on every floor, we've got more anchor points than you can count, we've got removable floors, removable stairs. We can go into the 2nd and 3rd floor off the drill tower, so whether you want to use it as an external stairwell or a high-rise, we can do all that and mimic just about any type of situation that the members of the fire department might encounter.
Experience cost-effectiveness, enhanced realistic training, versatile operations, easy multi-floor access, and innovative solutions to age-old training challenges. Take your fire department's training to the next level with Affordable Drill Towers. Reach out to Affordable Drill Towers to elevate your training capabilities today.
Corley Moore, Firehouse Vigilance. It is weekly scrap number 257. My guest tonight, and man, I'm so excited. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice or not, but it is the father and son Denver duo, Dave and Pat McGrail. I am excited that this could happen and look forward to what tonight will bring. I'm going to introduce our guest. Let's go with the father first. Pat McGrail, 41-year veteran of the DFD, having served from April 1, 1955 to January of 1997, over 4 decades of service. He never missed a shift. He never called in sick in all those years, not once. That's unbelievable. We're going to talk about so much, but that's just, that's the bio right there. I don't need anything else needs to be said. The younger half of the duo is Dave McGrail, who only recently retired from the Denver Fire Department. Most people know him as the person who wrote the book on high-rise firefighting. He instructs all over the world, a real-world expert on fireground operations, strategy and tactics, command and control. I've had the pleasure of catching his classes multiple times, and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome both of you to episode number 257 of The Scrap.
Corley, thank you for having us. We're flattered and honored to be here. You have a long list of really top shelf firefighters and fire officers that you have on The Scrap, and it's an honor for us to be here tonight. Thank you.
Brother, when you called, because I've been trying to get you back on. You were on number 110. That was a while back now, but you were on 110, and it's a very, very popular episode. So you can go check that one out, everybody. But I've been trying to get you back on. Of course, you've been wrapping up your career and stuff going on in life, and you're a very busy person. And you called up finally and said, "Hey, I want to do this, but I want to do it with my dad." And I was like, I don't know if you peeked inside my brain, because so many people said, you know what you need to do is you need to get Dave on and have him come on with his dad. And so it's always been there wanting to ask you to make it happen. And when you actually brought it up, I was like, yeah, we're making this happen. So that's the backstory of how we got here. But before I get into that, is there anything I missed in the intro? Anything you want to add?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. Audience, please get your questions primed and ready. I tried to do the math, 55 to 23. Someone do faster math than me. 45 plus 23, 68. 68 years roughly. We're knocking on 7 decades of fire service. Woo!
Yep. There was a McGrail on the DFD for 68 years.
68 years. So we're going to talk about a lot. So please get your questions in here for Dave and Pat. It's going to be amazing. But let's get the sponsors done, and then I'll get to the hype, and then we'll kick this off. The beautiful sponsors of The Scrap. Of course, we start with the OG, Key Hose, the absolute first sponsor of The Scrap. You can check them out online at keyhose.com and follow them on Facebook. Affordable Drill Towers, on a mission to bring you cost-effective and versatile training props, like the Affordable Bailout Prop, which allows you to practice window bailouts, ladder bailouts, and ladder high-point rescues. They also make the Affordable Standpipe Prop, which you can roll into the classroom for standpipe theory, and then you roll it into the parking lot where you can pump realistic flows and pressures. One of the best, with more than 60 drill towers installed, the Affordable Drill Tower comes in several configurations, standard with a standpipe system, 1 or 2 sets of stairs, integrated into your existing connect boxes for multi-story access, or freestanding on a slab. All models are NFPA 1402 compliant and gain you ISO credit. The only thing that you cannot do on an Affordable Drill Tower is live fire training. Call Steve, 844-55-TOWER, or drop an email to info@affordabledrilltowers.com. Firefighter safety and accountability starts with being able to quickly find and identify individual firefighters operating on the fire ground. Identifier safety combines the best in photoluminescent materials for durable firefighter identification solutions that can glow for up to 20 hours, no switches, no batteries, which means you can rapidly identify firefighters by name, unit, or assignment, even under hot fire conditions. All specifically designed and tested for the rigors of the job. Be seen, on scene. Identifiersafety.com. And last but definitely not least, my man, Dave Prescott, the Fast Wrench. It is the one and only standpipe operations multi-tool in the fire service. It combines 10 different tools into one lightweight, easy-to-use hand tool. The Fast Wrench, there it is. The Fast Wrench is quickly becoming the best practice tool for adjusting any make or model field adjustable PRV, and it is an absolute must-have in your standpipe kit. Designed by a firefighter for doing the tough business of standpipe firefighting, lighten your kit and streamline your operations with the Fast Wrench. Check them out at fastwrench.net. And with that, man, that was a mouthful. There was a lot of them there, man. Everybody wanted in on the McGrails. And so we're past the sponsors. We're into the scrap. I'm going to read a few comments coming at you from the audience, which they've already been commenting for quite a while. So there's like 40 comments already posted up in here. Rob Fisher said, I love you, Rob. Thanks for being here. Rob Fisher said, I cannot wait to hear from the man who raised such a great leader and firefighter. Dave McGrail, this is going to be awesome.
Thank you, Rob.
Cody Brooks coming says, checking in from Florida. iPhone boys in the house. Joe Gavita said, had the pleasure of Chief McGrail coming to Mount Lebanon, Pennsylvania to teach us the Denver Pack. Such a humble person and very knowledgeable. 68 years. That's amazing, from John Lawless. Yes, absolutely, man. The legacy, there's so much, so much going on. All right, lots of hype. Where do you want, I'm trying to think where to start. We're going to try and encapsulate 68 years of fire service 2 generations, legacy, everything involved. I'm going to try and start with, Dave, I'll start with you and say, what was it like to follow in your father's footsteps, so to speak, as you moved to the Denver Fire Department? We'll start there.
It's a great question, and thank you again for having us. One of my motivations to do this tonight was the guys in the fire service that I've become friends with and established relationship with, and firefighters where I've done training classes. One of my wishes and wants was to introduce those firefighters to the guy that I learned most of what I know and most of what I do from, and that's my dad. It was I don't remember a time in my life ever as a child or from my earliest recollection. I don't remember ever wanting to do anything but follow in his footsteps and be a fireman, and specifically a Denver fireman. I had the privilege and the honor to work on the Aurora Fire Department while I was trying to get on Denver. Aurora is an excellent organization that has really exceptional leadership right now, and has always had very excellent rank and file firefighters. But I worked there for 5 years while I was trying to get on Denver, and then I just lucked out and was one of the lucky guys that got my dream job. But following in Dad's footsteps was it was the dream come true of a lifetime. And then what was really cool is from 87 to 97, for a decade, we were working together and we were going to fires together. And
nice.
That was way cool.
I bet.
But
I'm going to interrupt you real quick because you are an emphatic speaker and your hand is active. As you tap the desk, the mic is picking it up, and it is very emphatic. No, I'm probably going to have to tell you a few times, but It is like a very booming bass drum when people listen. So just so you know, but absolutely, I'm going to kick it to Pat, and I want to know. Rob Fisher actually asked this and said, why Pat decided to go onto the job.
Excuse me. Why did I go on the job? Probably the same reason Dave did. That's about all I ever wanted to do. And I got a chance to do it. And it just, everything fell in line. You had to be 22 years old in those days. And I took the test when I was 22. I got on the job when I was 23. So it was kind of nice having my son come up behind me the way he did. But, I guess I would have to say, who was before me? You talked about the 60 years and all that between the two of us. Well, when I come to work, the senior guy on the rig that I worked with come to work in 1913. So that's a long time ago. And I've thought about that a lot of times, the fact that we was basically trying to run our jobs together and make it work out with right from the beginning. But this guy was come to work when he was in 1913 and worked till he was, I think, 50 some years old or something like that when he finally retired. But what a guy he was. And that's where I learned all my stuff, was kind of from them.
One of the things we've talked about when we've done presentations together, Dad and I, he talks about 100-year connection, Corley. And that gentleman that was the senior guy on Engine 6 was my dad's first assignment, Engine 6 in downtown Denver. That firefighter's name was George Gerard. He was hired on the fire department specifically because he had previously worked in the construction industry, and he was a skilled master at driving a team of horses. So that's why he was brought on the job, because there was still horses back in that period of time. But one of the things that Dad introduced me to is what he refers to as a 100-year connection. And I'll have him give you some specifics on that. But in essence, if I worked past 2013, which I did, there are things that obviously most of the stuff that I learned from my dad. Well, there's a connection all the way back to George Gerard, even for me, because George Gerard was one of many guys that were mentors for my dad and taught him how to do the job. But what would you add to that with regard to the 100-year connection?
It's simple. Imagine everybody's done the same thing. I'm not new on it, but one little thing to change with Dave. This George Girardi was a second rig that I worked on. When I went to work at Sixes, I was only there about 3 months. In those days, it was a 6-month probation period. The first month we went to school, and then you was at 1 or 2 fire stations before you finally got a permanent assignment. Well, I got him on the second time around, George Gerard, but I thought about him a lot of times because not just me, he told me about the things that happened way before I come to work. So it's basically what you do is you learn from the people behind you. They learn things from you, and you pass it on to people that probably talks to you sometimes long after you've retired. After 100 years, nobody cares. But in that 100-year period, you can probably pick up all kinds of different things that happened on the fire department as far as Denver's concerned. And so it was always that well. Yeah, I just give you a run over of it, but when I used to get a new guy on the job or something, I try and tell him to do that. Make sure you leave something and you give something, and that's basically it.
Wow, man, that's awesome. Go ahead, Dave. Sorry.
Corley, one of the things, and for our brother, Chief Rob Fisher, Dad always told me, he said that we, and what you're doing is you're probably one of the best examples of this in the fire service, Chief Corley Moore. And I know Rob Fisher is as well, but Dad always told me, he said that we have a moral obligation to pass on, what we've learned and what we know to that generation that's coming behind us. And it's a real important thing. The Tim McGraw song, Humble and Kind, it's a song that I really like, but always says, don't forget when you get where you're going, turn back around and help the next guy in line. And I think that's really important. But Dad's told me for years, make sure we have a moral obligation. Make sure that you pass on what you know to the firefighters coming up behind you.
Right on, brother. I love that. I love that message. You're too kind in the compliments. I'm one of the luckiest dudes in the fire service because I get to have conversations like this, and it's amazing to me that I get thanked for doing so. Humble and Kind. You brought that up because that was played in Pensacola at your retirement acknowledgement, and it was your daughter that picked that out, right?
I believe so. Her and probably my wife Gina, my daughter Caroline, and Gina know. And then hats off again to Chief Rob Fisher because he was the choreographer of that whole event. So
yeah, make it happen.
It was really awesome. Meant a lot to me.
Oh, brother, absolutely. Man, there's so much I want to ask as far as like changes throughout the decades and so much. But I'm trying to figure out. I want to go to. I'll keep it to the audience. Question for Pat. That's right in line with where I'm at. I like that. Hold on. There was one I saw. Derek 8 asking this. There's a stigma of not letting your children follow you into the fire service. Pat, how did you feel when your son followed in your footsteps? Did you have any apprehension about it?
None whatsoever. That was, to me, it was the only thing to do. When I was getting married to my wife, I told her, well, getting back a little bit, a lot of people have asked their husbands not to go on the fire department. It's a dangerous job. It's this, it's that, it's other things. I don't know what. But I always thought that you do what you want to do. If you want to go on the fire department, you go on the fire department, and more power to you. And, I would rather see him say to me, I want to go on the fire department, than say to my other 2 sons, it'd be a nice idea if you went on the fire department. If they don't want to do it, don't even talk about it. But if they want to do it, it's the greatest job in the world. And I've got no qualms whatsoever about him going on the fire department.
Great answer, man. Great question, Derek. Thank you. Question for Pat come from Jake J. What are the best and worst changes that you have witnessed over the years?
Probably I have to say the big line. It's when I come to work, we always pull the 2.5 inch and put the fire out just like that. Now they use the 1.5 inch because I hate to say it, but they're taking on girls and some people that aren't prepared to be on that job. They can't handle it, so they go down to a smaller old hose. And that's what they're using. And it's absolutely ridiculous. You put out the fire and you don't have to worry about that. I'd say the lines.
The lines.
There's been all kinds of things, but I think the big line was the big thing. When I went to work, we had two sides of the engine would have 1.5 inch lines in there. Well, we had an old fire chief. His name was Billy Bryan, and he said, "Pull the big line, put the fire out." One day he come in. There was a new lieutenant on a rig working, pulled a smaller line and started to go in with it. And Billy Bryan says to him, "Son, you going to water the lawn or you going to put the fire out? You can do one or the other, but don't pull that line anymore." We pulled a big line for trash cans. We just pull it off and turn the water on. So that was, to me, it was a big bit. Everybody's trying to change things, trying to make it simpler or something. There's only one way to put the fire out, and you put water on it.
What about good things? What is a good thing that happened?
The good thing, probably the masks. You know, when I first went to work, they'd just gotten into those old canister masks, which were, they had a little sign on the side that said, you have to have 16 degrees of air in order to make these work. Well, that's a bunch of baloney, because as soon as you got in where it was pretty smoky, those things just clamp up, and that was the end of it. Fortunately for us, I think it was the Seattle Fire Department. Fortunately for us, it wasn't for them. They had 3 firefighters die with those kind of masks on just because they stopped as soon as they got in enough smoke. The very next day, they stopped doing that all over the country. So for about 6 months, we had no masks, we had no nothing. But we got the good masks when that was over with. But thank goodness they got rid of those masks before more guys got killed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Man, I can only imagine the changes you've seen, the things that have been tried between both of you over the years. And it's just absolutely great questions coming from the audience. Keep them coming, please. Gregory Van Ham wants to know, what was one thing your dad passed on to you after he retired from the fire service? So I guess it's to you, Dave. What's one thing your dad passed on to you?
Well, geez, I'm going to have to come up with one thing, but
one thing, yeah, I know.
We still talk shop to this day about the job. And, one thing that he passed on to me, so a number of things that he passed on to me, but it probably one of the most important things he passed on to me is that whole concept of weapon selection. Firefighters that have taken my training programs know that I am a huge proponent of the use of 2.5 inch hose when it's appropriate to do so. I mean, just like everybody that's with us tonight in the audience and the guys that'll listen to the podcast, most of our fires are safely and successfully handled with an 1 3/4 inch pre-connect. The good engine company is the engine company that has the ability to utilize all of those weapons, especially the more powerful weapons. They have the ability to do that because they've set their rig up to where it's user-friendly. They train on the use of those tools, be it 2.5 or Master Stream appliances. And then when the time comes, they come around the corner and says, this is where we need to go big. They're able to go big with success. But I would say of all the things that he passed on to me, and he passes things on to me to this day, but all of the things that he passed on to me, certainly that concept of how he was raised by George Gerard and the officers that he worked with, the importance of being powerful with your weapon selection. And you guys know, you don't have to go very far on YouTube to look at fire videos where there may be multiple firefighters with single smaller hose lines getting defeated at a fire where they needed to team up and use something more powerful, whether it's a ground master stream or a 2.5 or whatever the case may be. But certainly the use of powerful attack weapons, and specifically the 2.5, would be one of the big things. I think the question though was after he retired. More than anything else, to the brother that asked the question, Dad was just always very supportive of me. because he had a radio scanner, so he could listen to the calls and that sort of thing. And him and I would be able to discuss calls that I went on and talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, and it helped me improve based on the vicarious experience of listening to him and his many experiences. I've encountered this before. I'd suggest maybe you try this next time. That was always very helpful.
I love it. I love it. Absolutely great answer. And there's so many coming. John Lawless says, I like this one. What's the most common topic that you all have when you're talking shop?
Ooh, boy. The most common topic that we have when we're talking shop.
Everything under the sun. You don't talk firefighting all the time. Everybody had something to say, and that's good if you got a crew that works together and talks together, eats together. It's easy to do. But you go, in our particular fire station, we got a lot of fire stations with individual rooms. When I went to work, there was just one dormitory, and that everybody did the same kind of things. We didn't have any air conditioning. We'd sit out in front of the firehouse and we talk about everything there was. And pretty soon, this fire, that fire, whatever came up, it's just was there. It was always there.
One of the things that Dad and I talk about a lot is an engine company on the DFD that him and I both admire a lot is Engine 3. And it is a well-respected, very good engine company on our job. It's in the oldest firehouse in the city, and there's no creature comforts there. There's a central dormitory where everybody's together. From the dormitory, you can touch the pumper and you can reach the kitchen. They're together all day and all night. And I believe that old school type of firehouse brings the company together with greater esprit de corps. And then you're not meeting up, when the tones go off at the rig and everybody's coming from their own individual cabana. So the old-fashioned firehouse, there's a lot to be said for the old-fashioned firehouse. And I think that's good. To answer the question, too, I would just echo on something that Dad said to the brother that asked that last question. Something that Dad and I both admire, and I learned this from him. He's an end-of-the-job firefighter. And I know you are as into the job as anybody I know, Corley. But that's one of the things we talk about a lot is how much we appreciate firefighters that are into the job. Mm-hmm. And when I do training programs now, I kind of turn it around on the audience a little bit. And I ask the firefighters in the audience how important it is to them when they're a consumer of a product. And when you're at conferences, oftentimes firefighters get there by way of air travel. And when I get on a plane and I'm sitting in the seat in the back, one of my wishes and wants and hopes, and I guess prayers that I hope gets answered, is that the pilots up in the cockpit are into the job pilots. They're into aviation, the Chesley, Sully, Sullenberger types. So for the consumers of our product, our emergency services, our fire suppression, our rescues that we do, those people want into the job firefighters. And if there's something Dad and I talk about probably more than anything else, it's how much we appreciate people like you, Corley, that are into the job firefighters, because the people in our communities, the consumers, they're getting a hell of a product from the firefighters that are into the job. And for the firefighters that are listening, because you're listening, you're probably into the job. You don't ever have to apologize for being into the job. Thank you for being into the job.
Love that.
Can I give you just a little sidelight on that Engine 3 that he talked about? It was kind of a bad luck company early on. They had a lot of men that were killed from that firehouse. And as time went on, it got a lot better. But I was thinking of George Gerard when he first went to work in sometime in the 1920s or something like that. They had a fire downtown, and 3s was on the second alarm and 2s was on the first alarm. When 2s went in, got the fire, or was working the fire, the chief, when 3s came on the second alarm, they pulled 2s out, put 3s in, and within 5 minutes or less, killed them all. They fell into the basement. And I can tell you about 2 rigs that came together where 3s was there, 4s and 3s both of them going to a change of location. But in those days, you change of location was done with your siren and whistles and all that there. Threes hit fours and killed 2 firemen there. And it's happened before, but they're probably as good a fire company as there is in the city of Denver. But as you go way back to the 1900s, they had some bad luck. That's it.
Wow. No, so many good questions, man. So many. They're coming at you. I like this one coming from Preston Lyons. He wants to know, Dave, did your dad have higher standards for you on the job?
Yeah, he absolutely did. There's no doubt about it. And you know, there were probably times as a young man growing up on the fire department where maybe I thought at the time maybe this is not very fair, or whatever the case may be. But those higher standards are something that I think helped me to become the firefighter that I became. And that's probably the reason I've had high standards for the firefighters that I worked with over the course of time. So it's certainly a good thing. There's no doubt about it. But absolutely, I would say he had higher standards for me. What's your take on that? Did you have higher standards for me?
I think it was, I can't really say that. He just had them, period. He knew he was a fireman. He wanted to be a fireman, and he was a fireman for 24 hours. When he was off duty, went home with his family and everything else, it was a whole different thing. But when he was there, he was a fireman all the way.
Love that. I like this one. This is a scrap first, but Amanda Moore has a question. I don't think I've ever asked a question from Amanda Moore on the scrap, but it's coming, and I love the question. It's, Pat, how did you keep your role at the firehouse separate from your role at home as a dad when talking to your firefighter son and giving advice? Or did you?
Well, I didn't. We had no problems. My wife was a nurse. I was a firefighter. We had a lot of things going for each other. We're trying to raise 3 kids at the same time. We didn't have time to talk about the fire department.
There you go.
I mean, as times went on, you naturally do that. We had dinner or whatever it was, but we never got into that kind of stuff at all. He just had it, and I felt good about that.
Great questions. There's a whole lot of firsts. I'm trying to figure out which ones to ask. I want to go with this one because I like it. It's from Rob Fisher again. Rob Fisher throws some nice change of pace questions, and I like this one. Pat, what was your favorite meal in the firehouse when you were on the job?
Every Sunday on the Denver Fire Department, come hell or high water, there was only one meal, and that was spaghetti. So that's it.
That's it?
Every Sunday, and to this day, they serve spaghetti on Sunday. That's it.
Love it. I love tradition.
And Rob, just so you know, last Sunday at the McGrail household, we had good old-fashioned firehouse spaghetti.
Pretty good.
I mean, if you're sticking to it. Michael Ramirez coming at you said, Chief, but you guys got to be very clear on when you say Chief, who you're talking to. Michael Ramirez says, Chief, what is your favorite childhood memory at the firehouse with your dad? He said, take your time. So you can think about it, but favorite childhood memory.
Well, you know, anytime my mom would say, do you want to go to the firehouse? Before she got the S and house out, I was in the car. That was one of my favorite experiences, to go to the firehouse. Memories of the firehouse are these. I just remember going to Old Station 2. The building's no longer there, but it was a firehouse on West Colfax Avenue, 9th Street, and then Mariposa on the opposite side of the street. But I remember the smell, and it's that kind of a combination of the previous fires, that their most recent fires they've gone to, how the firehouse smelled that way, whatever was cooking on the stove, and then the diesel and the solvents and the other things. But it's a smell that I can smell right now, and that was probably one of my strongest memories. But just tremendous memories when I was there. I was hoping they'd get a run while I was there, and when they would get a run while I was there, I was just thrilled. It was just thrilling to see my dad turn out and go on a run, that sort of thing. But the odors, the smells, the atmosphere, and him going on runs.
Love it. Absolutely. That's all I'm going to say. Every answer is just say love it. Great questions, great answers. Kyle Romagus has a question coming at you, Pat. How did firefighters tackle building and using fire streams in high-rise buildings early in your career? How did the tactics involved with that evolve while you were on the job?
Well, when I went on the job, the majority of downtown firehouses was 5 to 6 stories. We hadn't started into the high-rise business yet. We changed the whole downtown at one time and tore everything down and built it up again and went up high. And he got into that. But when I was working, it was everybody coming on the fire department got a hose chain and a strap. We didn't even know what they were till we find out you pull your ladder up the side of the building. So you pull in, and I probably early on my service on the fire department was about a 5-story building, just like you're talking about. And we came in on the second alarm, and they threw one of the aerials for us, and up we went. All of us carried that 2.5 inch up to the top floor in the building and put the fire out. I don't know what else you can say. There's probably a high rise or something around town, but nothing that you couldn't get to with like you do today. You better take it up the stairs or up the ladder, but it's a lot faster and a lot quicker with the ladder.
Great questions, man. Great answers. Pat, how about you? Because you saw obviously you wrote a book on something called high-rise firefighting, I believe.
That's Dave.
I'm sorry, Dave. Yes, I'm sorry.
Well, Kyle Ramagus is somebody I really admire. He's another into the job firefighter that is positively affecting the fire service big time with what he teaches firefighters, both academically and with his hands-on training. But I would just echo on that answer with Kyle that when I first came on the job, and once again I worked for the Aurora Fire Department, I had no real understanding of fire streams, and most of my early understanding of fire streams in 1982 was a combination nozzle, 60-degree pattern, having it on a fog for protection. We all know that it's not protection, it's pushing. But for me, Kyle, Dad was the one that first started introducing me and started to help me fine-tune my skills with regard to weapon selection. And that's when I really started to understand the importance, especially of the good old-fashioned smoothbore nozzle and that solid stream. And as the late Andy Fredericks would say, delivering solid water droplets to burning solid fuels. That's what's going to make it happen. But that's much of what's in that book is what I learned from my dad. And interestingly enough, in that 10-year period from 87 to 97, we went to several high-rise fires together. And I remember one specifically where he was assigned on the inside. And as I was coming out of the fire floor, heading down to get a new air cylinder, he was on his way up, and we passed one another in the stairwell. And that's real cool stuff there. And it was a juicy high-rise fire. It went to 3 alarms and very significant. And I would just echo on that as well. That was one of those experiences for me because that fire involved a 750 square foot condo unit on the 7th floor of a 20-story high-rise. It took 3 2.5s to stop that fire. And I didn't know at the time that what we saw when we came into the building, because the building had an atrium and there was a blue flame blowing out of apartment 702 into the atrium. I didn't understand that was a wind-driven fire.
Wind-driven, right.
But 3 2.5s. And much of what my dad had been telling me for a number of years, that fire occurred on Halloween of 1991. So I was 9 years in at the time, but it was like, there are situations where even a relatively small condo unit, 750 square feet of condo unit, once again required 3 2.5s to put out the fire. 2 at the door, and one, companies had to breach a wall from 704 to 702 to get some water in there to try and simmer it down so that the companies at the door, and I was part of the companies at the door, could finally make a push into the apartment and finish it up and get a search done. But Kyle, much of what I've done, a lot of what's in the book is stuff I learned from my dad, especially with regard to nozzles and handline weapons.
Love it. Garrett Crody.
Early on the job, we had a couple of chiefs that were trying out fog nozzles, It was a really good idea. You can push the water away. You can clean up. You can get a breath of fresh air, whatever it was. So we tried it. They sent us down in a basement. I know you know what's going to happen next. But when we turned that fog nozzle on and tried it, there was no building or windows or anything on the other end. It was all solid wall. When it hit that wall, the whole thing came back, and that was the end of it. The chief at the time says, "I don't want to ever see one of those now fog nozzles again." He died. He later retired, but after that, there were different people that used those and swore by them. But we never used a fog nozzle again after that fire.
Right on.
And Carly, for the listeners, just there is a place for fog nozzles. There's no doubt about it. But simply put, the fog nozzle is a tool that is ideal for outside in a ventilated atmosphere. So go to a car fire, you could straight stream it. As you approach, you can open up on a fog pattern to start to push some of the junk away from you because you're in a ventilated atmosphere. For interior structural firefighting, I always, as I'm mentoring young firefighters, I always encourage them to use the People's Choice nozzle for that interior structural firefighting.
Absolutely.
Critically important for high-rise operations, especially because of low pressure and debris in the system. And then you and I had this conversation on Scrap 110, but as I've said before, if I see an apparatus that has a fog nozzle and a master stream appliance, I just can't take them seriously. It's so silly to have, in the investment and the amount of money. Obviously, a master stream appliance is designed to throw a whole lot of water a long distance from the point of origin, and you do that best with a smoothbore nozzle. So
you're never going to go wrong on the scrap by absolutely saying that a fog nozzle does not belong in interior firefighting. So in my mind, and it's an opinion by me, but I think it's shared by many. No, great question, Kyle. Great answers. I'm looking for one here because this one comes from Garrett Crody. Can you guys share, and it's right in theme with what we're talking about here, because you just told one brief story about that town or that high-rise fire. Can you guys share your favorite memory from the job of each other? He says, I always get goosebumps when I see the picture and Chief Ike goes, "Charge the line, Dad, charge the line." You know, when he tells that story. Do you guys have stories like that of the fires you worked together?
Well, you want to think about it. I kind of already said it, but at that high-rise fire, I was coming out to get a new air cylinder. At the time, our job had the rescue companies, and I was a firefighter on Rescue 1. But the rescue companies and the truck companies all had 1-hour air cylinders that we used on a daily basis. I don't recommend that. Very painful for your lumbar vertebrae when you get to be 61. But we had 1-hour cylinders, so we operated for quite a long time. I was coming out and going down the stairs, and I remember him coming up the stairs, and that was a memory that I always remembered. But Garrett, I'm glad you're with us. Another great guy in our American Fire Service. But many different memories at incidents where he was the incident commander and I was a firefighter, and then being able to work in the same district with him. And so many different memories. You got any memories of us that come to mind for you?
For whatever reason, we didn't cross paths a whole lot in the fire service. We was either on the wrong shift or the wrong place in the city, but it didn't happen too often. So I can't come up with anything except that fire he talked about.
Right on, right on. No, I love it. I love it. Hey, I don't know if the sun has set in Colorado, but it's got very dark. So Dave is in shadow. It's got good light on Pat, but just letting you know, you might kick a light on.
I'm going to turn some lights on here for
you. Yeah. I was going to say, just for the audience, because we got a silhouette of Dave, like a vampire kind of. There you go. Perfect.
That a little better?
Much better.
Okay.
This is the quality. This is the fun part of a live show. All right, coming at you, Brett. I'm sorry if I mispronounce names, including Garrett, but Brett Mercell says, Pat, what is the oldest piece of advice that you got that helped you through the job?
Boy, that's tough. I never felt that I had anything to take me through the job. It was something I wanted to do all my life. I did it, and I liked it up to the very last day.
It's hard to knock.
Any advice that you got from anybody coming up though? From
I got advice from everybody. Anybody that want to give me some advice, I'd take it. But I worked for a lot of old Irish Catholic chiefs, and they were tough, and they taught me a lot. That's just the way it was.
one of the things that I'd pass on to you as well, and this might jog a little bit of Dad's memory as well, but when he went and started on probation there at Engine 6, most of those firefighters and fire officers in that firehouse were World War II vets. So that so-called greatest generation. And so those were some of the guys he was learning early on from.
Well, it occurred to me maybe 30 years later, and I thought how lucky I was. I took that first morning when I went in the firehouse, because both shifts stood roll call in your Class A uniforms. It was always that's the way it was. So we're all lined up there, and I thought about it some maybe 20 or 30 years later. But everybody there, except 3 or 4 people that were there that were held over during World War II, they didn't let them retire until the war was over, and maybe 1 or 2 other guys. But out of maybe 30 guys there, everybody had been to Iwo Jima, Guadalcanal, the Battle of the Bulge, all those things. Because at the time when they went to work, you got 5 points on the test if you was a veteran, and you got 10 points on the test if you were hurt, injured. And a lot of them came back with wounds of one thing or another that they cured them from, that they could do their job. But I thought to myself, what a thrill that was to me to be with these people.
No doubt about it.
Corley, one of the things in the title that I gave you, it was hose wagons to hydrant valves, and I just wanted to make sure we gave some sort of an explanation to that.
No, absolutely. Dude, there's so much coming, so go ahead.
Yeah, so when Dad came on the job, there were 3 hose wagon units on the department, hose wagon companies, I should say. There was a wagon at 2s, at 3s, and at 5s. And one of his assignments when he went from Engine 6 to Station 2 was on Wagon 2. And so back in the day, once again, no pumps on that vehicle at all, just a bed of 2.5, and they would lay a supply line out, supply/attack line out from a hydrant. They'd guesstimate their stretch, break the hose bed, add a nozzle, and head into a building on hydrant water. Hydrant
pressure, really?
And because the hydrant pressure, it's a good water system in Denver,
okay,
the Denver Water Department, but that's how they extinguished a lot of fires. And when the pumpers came into be, and he was an engineer on Engine 5 in 1966 to 68, but they would still lay out from a hydrant with 2.5, guesstimate the stretch, break the line, add a nozzle, and go into the building. And then the engineer from the pumper would turn that pumper around, go back to the hydrant, and get ready to go to work on the hydrant and actually pump it if necessary. In my time on the fire department, I remember in the 80s, the 90s, when there was a significant fire, there was a lot of conversation about the post-incident analysis, as they call today, the critiques back in the day. One of the things that always came up was water supply was a problem at that fire. And why was water supply a problem at that fire? That's when we introduced hydrant valves to the Denver Fire Department. And hydrant valves are probably 2 decades old on the Denver, 4-way hydrant valves, 2 decades old on the Denver Fire Department now, and it's really become part of the culture. So you get a fire in Denver now, first engine will lay a supply line from the hydrant. The second engine that arrives will go to work on that hydrant, because now you're putting a pump with the water supply, you're maximizing the water supply. I think since the introduction of hydrant valves, there was a lot less water supply problems at fires because we were maximizing the water supplies. What would you add to that with regard to the old days and hose wagons?
Well, being an engineer for 14 months, I think I was an engineer, and I maybe put that pumper to work less than 5 times. Because the water supply in Denver is so good, you could be the next firefighter if you wanted to do it. I mean, most engineers stayed with the rig, but if you wanted to go with them.
Oh,
but
wow.
so very seldom I got to be an engineer for 14 months, and I put it to work. Maybe I can remember 2 for sure, but that's about it.
Wow, just amazing, amazing. The pressure alone being enough to just hook up and go.
Oh, it's all over downtown Denver.
Is it just the altitude and or the elevation changes that allow gravity feed, or is it just a good pump system or combination?
There isn't really a lot of elevation changes in this today. I mean, Denver's sitting a mile high at 5280. But it's interesting. Denver's actually kind of a high desert city.
Or kind of
and
flat?
It's essentially pretty flat.
Okay.
It's just that the Denver Water Department did a real good job. And then downtown, you have 24-inch circulating feeds, that sort of thing. The water pressure gets a little bit less desirable in some of the outer lying areas, but it's still pretty good in most places. Average static pressure in Denver, 75 psi.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
No, I just wondered what the systemic issue was, but it sounds just like good infrastructure, good
It is.
planning.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Kyle Romix has said, I've never had a water supply problem, but I've had hundreds of water supplier problems. And he's quoting Clyde Gordon, of course. But
I love Clyde Gordon.
absolutely. Colin Kennedy asking, Chief McGrail, can you and your dad speak to the attributes required to be a great company officer? From your brother in Phoenix, Colin Kennedy.
Oh, Colin, it's great to hear from you, my Irish brother, and appreciate the good work that you're doing in Phoenix, my brother. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, attributes that you find to be the really important and attributes that make for a really excellent company officer?
Don't think you're too good. You stand back because you're one more member of that company. And if you start telling them all the kinds of things they already know, you're going to get in a lot of trouble. I worked for 20 years on the rescue, and I worked with some of the best firemen in the city of Denver. And every Sunday or Saturday, I can't remember which day it was, we had a meeting in the kitchen, and everybody could throw out whatever they wanted. What do you know? What do you want to know? What kind of things we should get? We were getting new tools and things. Somebody would say, I really like to see this. Well, let's get it. But we had every day of the week, we had something going except Sundays because we didn't want to miss the football games. So in the morning, we'd always have a sit down at the kitchen table, which was the main place always on the fire department. But you never want to think you're pretty tough and you're pretty smart and you're a pretty good leader, because as soon as you think that way, you're going to find out you're not real fast.
Love it.
And Colin, here's a couple of things I would give you. I'm sure Corley and Kyle and Rob and Garrett and Colin, you guys will certainly all understand this, and all of the firefighters listening. There were, over the course of time in my career, I'm sure that there would be folks that would have favorable things to say about me as a company officer in my leadership and my management, and certainly would be a number of people that would not have so favorable things to say. I will tell you this, though. The greatest compliment that I could ever get from firefighters, and I did get this compliment from time to time, is I had some firefighters refer to me as a fireman's fire chief. And that means a lot to me. What I always tried to do is as the company officer, certainly there's the cliche thing of leading by example, but I think that's important, leading by example. And Corley, I think you're a good example of this. I have a very good understanding of what kind of a firefighter you are, a chief officer, what kind of leadership you provide, on the Moore, Oklahoma Fire Department. But I've learned over the course of time too that that leadership thing is really important when you're not at the firehouse as well. What kind of a husband, what kind of a father, and that sort of thing. And I know a little bit about that as you being a great example for us. But a faithful and dedicated husband, a good father. In other words, to kind of answer the question, you're on all the time, okay? And whether it's in the firehouse or it's in your personal life, leadership transcends those periods there. And I think it's important to always be a good leader that people are going to look up to. But for me as a company officer, I wanted to be physically fit. okay, so that the firefighters could count on me. I wanted to be technically sound and understand what we were doing and why we were doing it. Lead by example, as they say. Never going to send firefighters somewhere I'm not willing to go first, that sort of thing. But if you can be a fireman's company officer or a fireman's chief, I think you're moving in the right direction. And I think probably more than anything else, probably as Dad was kind of saying there, listen to the firefighters. Listen to what they have to say. I remember as a brand new lieutenant on the job, I was riding on engine 11 on our way to a working fire. The engineer was a friend named Regis Donovan, but Regis had many years on the job, and he was an engineer and had been an engineer for a number of years. He was a diesel mechanic. He was a great driver. He was a great pump operator. And I'm over in the right-hand side of that rig, and I'm just panicking. And I'm looking around, I'm saying, Regis, I think this might be the best hydrant, and maybe this might be the second best hydrant. And in that 69 American LaFrance, says he's shifting gears without the clutch, just finding the splits with the RPM and doing it. Just, it looks like poetry the way he was doing it. He leaned over and he tapped me on the thigh and he says, "Hey, old pal, why don't you just sit back and relax? I got it over here." And he was right. He knew the hydrant that we needed to go to. He knew what needed to be done. And so probably one of the big things for that question, listen to the senior guy, listen to especially a senior engineer, certainly listen to everybody, because you can make a lot of really good decisions if you have a collaborative decision-making mindset based on the information you're getting from the firefighters you work with, because there's a lot of really good dudes out there.
Man, great. There's still so many questions. You guys still good? Are you good? Or we need to wind it? All right, I'm gonna keep throwing at you.
Yeah.
Believe me, the audience is insatiable. So you gotta at some point say, hey. But Joe Gavita is asking a great question. He says, Pat, what were some of the things that firefighters were reluctant to change during your career, during your early days specifically?
Boy, it's hard to say. I can't come up with anything. Probably when we changed uniforms. For the first 15 years or so in the fire department, you wore your uniform pants, but you changed your shirt and put on a chambray shirt, and everybody rolled the shirts up as far as they can get it on their shoulders, and never put your coat on until you got there, because you didn't want the girls to miss you as you're going down the street. I don't know. I can't come up with anything, but probably when we changed those uniforms and went to a full dress uniform that nobody liked. And that's about the same time when the boots came out. But when I went to work, there was no boots. There was nothing. You wore the shoes you got. We got a guy that come by the firehouse and sell us shoes. And all the guys that buy shoes, and the captain would always go upstairs. When I was a mucker, he'd go upstairs and he'd punch holes in his shoes all the way around. I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "I want the water to run out." So that's that's the way it was. There was nothing fancy about what went on in those early days.
Right. Do you think it's just a more of a stoic acceptance and less complaining back in the day?
To answer that quickly, they all came back from the war. These guys that's what they were used to and what was going on and battles they were in. They'd do anything you wanted them to do. They were just excellent people, everything about them. I can't remember the early guys on the fire department, and right now, I can't think of any that aren't dead. They're all gone. But the people I worked with, it was something.
Wow. No, that's a great answer. I like you said, just good people.
There was a period on the Denver Fire Department, and I'll have Dad talk to this, but and it occurred in the 70s when they went from a 24-hour shift to a 9-hour and 14-hour shift. And that was a that was a real morale buster. But you want to talk a little bit about that? How long did that last? Were the 10 and 14s, right? 10 and
The 10 and
14s.
14s. It lasted about 3 years. And the chief went back to Boston and found out about those, how they did that. And he came back and he says, the wives are going to love it. They're just going to love it. But it was the worst episode we ever went through. I think we ended up, there was, it seemed like, this sounds silly, but there was 7 shifts, 2 men to a shift. And when you went to work, you worked with the one guy all the time. And the next day you worked with 2 guys and 2 other guys and 2 other guys. And it was terrible because they get off in the morning and they say, I'm not going to go home because I come back to work at 5 o'clock tonight. So they'd hit their nearest bar they went to. And it was one of those things where the guys come to work and you were trying to find the guy that was sober enough to drive. And it would drove you crazy. One little thing, he's heard the story before, and it's one we went in. Where there's a hospital, maybe 14 blocks or so from the firehouse, right straight up Spear Boulevard. And we got a fire, and we're going up there, and this guy is the greatest guy in the world. He's just wonderful. Everything he does is wonderful. But he likes to drink a little bit. And what was we going to do? We're going to fire the whole fire department? We couldn't do it. So you found out who was able to drive and who wasn't. And that was tough. Anyhow, we're going to Denver General Hospital. We're shooting up there. We get up there and we fly into a little area there that you drive into. Well, he missed the area and goes right into the building.
Oh, wow.
And he turns to me and he says, did you feel something? I says, yes, you just ran into the building. Oh, I didn't feel that. Well, that was the kind of time it was. It was terrible. There was nothing good about it. And it was just something we got through, and we went back to the old 24-hour shifts again, and everybody was happy again. But that was terrible time.
Right on. Right on. I love it. Pat, you mentioned you were on a rescue. Is there a memorable technical rescue you were a part of? A story you'd like to share?
It was the one and only we had. We just had the one rescue, and I was on it for 20 years. And I can tell you 1,000 or more different things, but you name anything you want, and we got it. The chief really liked us, but he also was calling us at all times and wanted us to go someplace. He wanted us to go to California when had the big earthquake, and take the squad to help them. That building that came down on top of the road that came down on top of the other road. And we were all set to go, and they canceled that. But we were always going someplace. The city is full of lakes all over the city, and we didn't have any other departments. And he was always calling us and sending us out someplace in a lake we never heard of to see if somebody's body is in there or whatever it is. And the fires were, it was one of those deals where for a long time, we had the only good air masks. So we'd always get the nozzle and they'd send us in, and we went into everything. And it was fantastic for a long time. And I can't ever remember a boring day.
Wow.
But it was quite a time.
I'll jog his memory for you on this with regard to that question. And 44-story commercial office building in downtown Denver, 1999 Broadway. We got very high-speed elevators that travel in a blind hoistway in that building. So the blind hoistway would take somebody from the lobby at ground level to the 31st floor, which would be a sky lobby. Well, that's in essence, that blind hoistway is a concrete tube. There was one night where the counterweights came undone from the side of the hoistway, struck the elevator, and then they were dangling above the elevator. So he was the incident commander on that, where you had to send a guy down, and that's when you sent Vern Scott down to rescue the people out of the elevator. But the elevator that they were trapped in, and the firefighters that had to go make the rescue were operating below several thousand pounds of counterweight. Do you remember that at all?
Right, vaguely, yeah. But when you brought it up, but I forgot all about that.
There's another one that they did, and this was, got to remember, this is many years ago before air monitoring and different things like that. But the water department or the wastewater department weren't sure where an underground culvert went to. So once again, that department called the fire department. Fire chief, can you help us out? Fire chief calls Captain McGrail on Rescue Squad 1, and they go down there, and my dad and his team started into this culvert with spare air cylinders, and it went underneath the highway, and it went for, I don't know, what would you say, probably 3/4 of a mile.
Yeah.
They were able to establish where it ended, and they ended up saving that department millions of dollars because they didn't have to dig. They were able to establish where it went to. So sometimes there were those slash community service type things that were somewhat of a technical rescue as well. And then the other one I would tell you, Corley, and Dad will remember this, but he worked with a fellow named Jack Bailey, and Jack Bailey was in essence my dad's weight belt for dive rescue, because there was no such thing as weight belts. So
Okay.
my dad would go down to search for the bodies, the guns, the knives, whatever it was in the lake, and Bailey would stand on top of him to hold him down.
To hold him down?
Remember that?
Oh, wow. Absolutely love it. One more. I got one more coming. There's so many questions. You guys, and please, at your leisure, once it's posted 24 hours from now, you can go see the live questions. They won't, if you go tomorrow, they won't be there. It takes about 24 hours, but they will be posted. But you can go see everything that you've missed. And there's probably been 200 comments and questions. So please go check them out. You'll enjoy seeing them because I can't even get to them all. But Garrett Crotty has one more. He says, Chief, Pat, DES is sometimes viewed as a new tactic. How often would you guys in the Denver Fire Department start searches from windows versus the front door? How have you saw, if any, searches change over the years?
Well, we had the masks, so we always went inside. So talking about going from window to window, I don't remember a whole lot of that. The truck companies would throw their ladders and come up that way and so forth. But we always went in and went up and went from there, whatever it was. So I can't really answer that question other than to say that the truck companies would do it.
Right on. Absolutely. Yes, I'm looking to see. Yeah, Kyle said there are 4 pages of questions. There is literally 4 pages of questions. I'll give Kyle a minute to pull up his favorite. Kyle and Sam, I'm not want to shortchange either one of you. Pull up your favorite. Throw it up top. I'm getting rid of Garrett's because I just asked it. Boom. Ask your favorite. I'll throw it at them and then we'll move on. Because there are so many. So I'll let Kyle and Sam. I like this one. This one comes from Tim Bobe. This is one of my favorites, and I'll ask it. Pat, what was the best Firehouse prank you were a part of?
Well, when I was an engineer at Fives, it was a single firehouse downtown, and right off of Larmer Street, and right in the middle of one of the worst places in the city. And what we always made sure we had plenty of was those M80 firecrackers. And they just, if we ran out of firecrackers, we ran outside the city of Denver and get more. A guy named Bob Butt said it was the senior man and he was always sending somebody to get more firecrackers. Well, we'd sit out in front of the firehouse and we would take the pie tins from the pie shop that was down the block after we got the pies before we took them back to down there, and we put the firecrackers right in the middle of the plate that they came on and flip them across the street like this. And they would do that, and they'd go over and they'd blow up and they'd do this and they'd do the other thing. Well, the one goes right in the back door of the beer joint across the street and blows up right there in the middle of where the band is. And the guy that owned the joint come over and he swore he was going to send us all down to the mayor and he was going to do this and he was doing that. And this Bob Butts gets up to him and he says to him, he says, you go ahead and do that. And I'll tell them about every Sunday when you come down the alley and sell that whiskey out the back door, because you couldn't do it on Sundays in Denver. And the guy got in his car and he drove away. And that was, but it's just, it was kind of a slow firehouse, so there's a lot of things to do, but the firecrackers were really important.
Tell them about
Right
the
on.
cans with the traffic cops and the
Oh,
motorcycles.
the cops would always come over in their motorcycle and sit there by the firehouse, and they go by 19th and Larmouth, run through the red light, and they take off and go after them. So the guys got two 200-foot ropes, tied them together, took them down the alley, and tied one in them, all ash cans down there, about 6 or 8 of them, and then came back up and put it on the back of his motorcycle while he's talking. And pretty soon, a car runs through the red light, the motorcycle shoots out of the alley, shoots up 19th Street, turns down Larmer Street, just about the time the last can gets caught. And all that stuff's chasing him right down the street. Well, it was that kind of place that just went on all the times.
I absolutely love it. You got me laughing. I'm just cackling here. This is the final question before we move on to books and books. But Tim Bobay wants to know, Chief, what, and this is obviously to both, what is your go-to advice you would give to any new young firefighter?
Well, I'll take it first, and then Dave can get it. But, bring him in. At least I always did. Bring him into the kitchen. We'd all sit down, tell him all about him, where he came from, what he wanted to do, all those kinds of things. We go through that. And then show him who the senior guys were. Follow those guys, see what they do, and they'll tell you what to do, and they'll help you. And before you know it, you'll catch right on. Dave will probably have some more on that.
Well, one of the things that I always want to tell younger firefighters is just not to give up. When I came in the fire service, my perception was that everybody on the job was going to be like my dad and like the guys that worked with him on Rescue 1, into the job firefighters, that sort of thing. Well, as all the firefighters that are involved in this scrap tonight understand, not everybody's like that.
Right.
So the main thing is to, as Dad always told me, be yourself. Be into the job. You don't have to apologize to anybody, including any mutt, that you're into the job. But most importantly, just don't give up. Be tenacious and don't give up, because I know a lot of guys over the course of my 41 years, when they started out, they were spectacular. And it was like, you would see them 10, 12, 15 years later, and it was like, what happened to him?
Mm-hmm.
What happened to him is that he got beat down so much and for so long that he gave up. And it was easier to, when in Rome, do what the Romans do, and you just go along and get along. And that's really sad to see. I always tell firefighters the most important grab you'll ever make in your career as a firefighter is rescuing a complacent firefighter from himself, and trying to resurrect that firefighter and bring them into the fray. Hey, you want to listen to the scrap? This is a real cool thing, because sometimes you can reach somebody and you can bring them back to where they need to be. But more than anything else, just don't give up. Be the kind of firefighter that you want those consumers in your community to want to have come to their house, and don't give up on that, because you will take a beating and you have to have a thick skin. It can be difficult at times. Don't give up. Whatever you do, don't give up.
If you get nothing else, man, this has been an amazing scrap. So this is one of my favorite, absolute timestamp. And here's the deal. Here's my timestamps tonight, because I've been enthralled. I'm sure everybody is in the same boat as I am, as I've just been enthralled. There's one right there. I have taken 0 notes. I've done a terrible job of being a host, because I have been absolutely enthralled with the discussion. So it's going to be a fun time as I look it over, either tomorrow or Thursday. I'm not sure when I'm actually going to go live and do it. But this is one of my favorite questions I ask, and it's book or books, there's no limit, that you think firefighters should read. Does not have to be firefighting related. Just what books do you think firefighters need to read?
Well, I'm sure Dave will have a different answer for you than that. I was never a reader. I didn't look at the books. I didn't do anything. I just stuck with the guys, and we like I say, a Sunday morning we'd all sit down and talk everything over. And the chief, as he said before, was always going to do something. Well, in our old drill manual from way back, had one of the things in there. It says the officer on an engine company or any other rig. I don't know what I said about the trucks or anything else. Anyhow, but the officer will always be at or near the nozzle. He doesn't give it to somebody else. He takes it himself and went. And being on the squad, I considered myself the nozzle man, and I would always take it. And we'd go places, and we had a chief, Ralph Johnson, and he'd always see us roll up there, and he'd say, "Those guys can't make it. They can't get up there. Will you try?" And I'd turn around and look at the guys, almost in unison. They'd all say, "Absolutely." And they went up there and put the fire out. And I never asked them anything when they didn't say, "Absolutely. Whatever you want done, Cap, we'll do it." And as far as the books are concerned, I'm poor at that. I should have. I read a lot of books when I was taking the tests like that, going on through the fire service. But I don't. After the test was over, I forgot what they said anyhow. So I wasn't a real book reader. So.
Right on. I love it. Chief, I guess that's Dave.
Well,
I feel almost disrespectful saying Dave. So Chief McGrail, go ahead.
Chief Moore, absolutely. That's a tough question, because as I start to give you some of the information that comes immediately to my mind, I'm going to miss something really important. And so I've got to be careful about how I do this, because I do have a pretty significant library, and there's a number of guys that I just admire so much with the work they've done. And then there's a long list of books that I want to read that I haven't quite gotten to yet so far. But I want to just correct him really quickly, because, my dad has, in his basement library, he has every fire engineering magazine dating back to before he was born. Okay. Fire engineering magazines from the 20s. He has always, and to this day, he subscribes to a periodical that many of you do as well, WNYF, with New York Firefighters. In his day, when he was studying, Manny Freed's book, O'Hagan's book, a lot of the heavy hitters, not just today in 2024, but back in the day, many of them were from FDNY. And so he studied those books. He did a lot more studying than he admits right now. But that's kind of where I got my spark in terms of trying to be somewhat academic with regard to what we're doing as well. Within hand's reach on my desk right here is air management for the fire service. And I will tell you that I am a huge fan of Mike Galliano. Mike and the other three Seattle officers, that air management for the fire service book, it's a very intimidating looking book, but it was written for firefighters, and it's actually a pretty easy read. I never thought anything about air management until I read that. And that's a very important book as far as I'm concerned. A real quick plug too, if you don't mind, Chief Corley Moore. On September 10, 11, and 12, and I would ask that all the firefighters that are listening right now, if you would spread the message out. Mike Galliano and his colleagues with the Firefighter Air Coalition, along with one of your sponsors tonight, the training tower sponsor.
Yeah.
They're doing Fire in the Sky.
Portable drill tower. Yes. Yeah,
portable drill towers are the other sponsor, but Fire in the Sky in Houston, Texas. That's I'm doing a program there on Thursday, September 10th. But please spread the word. And if you're close to Houston, Texas, or if you can make the trip down there, there's some really excellent speakers that are going to be speaking about high-rise operations there. Any book by Vincent Dunn, I have my entire career looked up to that man, have had conversations with him, consider him a mentor. Certainly any book by John Norman, and on the Denver Fire Department, Norman's Fire Officer's Handbook of Tactics was the book that everybody always had to study for promotional exams. That was the tactics book that was called upon for us. Okay. I'm a huge fan of Frank Viscuso. Okay. And Step Up and Lead and all of his leadership stuff he does. I can go on and on, whether it's Anthony Avillo, whether it is the new book that has been put out with regard to command and control, our brother Castros, our brother Brian Brush. And once again, I could continue doing this until everybody fell asleep. And there's an easier thing for me to do would be to write something down to include all of the books and the authors that I think is important for firefighters. I've just scratched the surface just a little bit for you here, and I'm missing a number of really good top shelf folks that do really good work, and also some authors of books that are not fire service related that I could mention as well. But those are the ones that come immediately to mind right there.
I love it, brother. I absolutely love that answer. And it's the thing, like you said, you said it where you're just scratching the surface. You're leaving out so many that you're going to think of that after we're over, you're like, oh yeah, I should have said. But here's the thing, the ones at the top, man, and sharing it, there's so much value into that for people. And that's why I love that question. I love asking it. So
if you look at the background here, Corley, and any of the other brothers that are watching this live, that bookcase is loaded with books back there. And as I was talking, the late William Clark, who was one of the guys that my dad looked at, and his second edition versus the original yellow book. I mean, there's stuff that you could look at. And Garrett, regarding vent intersearch, there's stuff that you can look at. And some of these older books by authors that have passed away many years ago, where they were talking about the concepts that we're doing today, whether it's door control or flow path control or vent intersearch or whatever the case may be. A lot of good timeless stuff out there.
Love it. Easiest love it I've ever given, man. Absolutely. Okay. Now here's the deal. I had all of 2024 planned out. I was so industrious. I planned out the entire scrap schedule. There was no open weeks for the rest of 2024. And then Chief Dave McGrail calls me and says, hey, I want to come on your show with my dad. And I'm like, okay, we're making it happen. That's why there's a back-to-back scrap, because we made it happen. But what I didn't do was send either of the McGrails the 5 questions for firefighters. So we're getting ready to do the 5 questions for firefighters, and neither one of them have any sort of prep on it. So here's the deal. The 5 questions for firefighters, it existed the first time you were here, but it has changed. We're now on the 5 questions for firefighters version 3.2, I believe is where we're currently at. But it's no wrong or right answers. It's just your opinions. And we've never done it with a duo. So this is going to be, we're breaking new ground is what I'm saying. But the first thing is there's no right or wrong answers. The points are arbitrary. They're assigned by me with the help of everybody that's watching. So are you ready for the 5 questions for firefighters?
Absolutely.
Okay. I don't know which direction we'll go. I'll let you guys decide who answers first, but we're going to get 2 answers on each one. So the first question is this: what is the skill that carried you through your fire service career? You get to pick one. What's the skill that carried you through your fire service career?
Mine is tenacity. Skill that carried you through your fire service career?
I'd have to say my wife. She was behind me from day one, and she just I can't think of any other skills I really had, but when I had one wife, you always get a problem or two sometime while you're working. I'd ask her what she thought. She'd tell me.
Wow. I thought tenacity was a good answer until your dad answered. I'll be honest. That's one of the easy. Yeah.
Story of my life, brother.
Rob Fisher said max points, all caps. Fireman 718 said max times 2. Max points for the wife from Sam. Amanda M said max, and there's like 14 A's there. Max points. Yeah, Rob Ramirez said, listen and learn, gents. There you go. Max points times 5 from Greg White. All right. Okay, enough. You guys got max points on question number 1. Easy. Hey, that was a soft toss. So we'll go to number 2. One of my favorite questions. It's Jobtown. It's time. You're responding to a structure fire. You have to think of the scene from Backdraft where McCaffrey's trying to run and jump on the rig, and the driver, the apparatus is putting the cassette tape into there, and it's playing that song. What song are you playing while you're en route to a structure fire? What song are you blasting?
Only the Young by Journey. What song are you playing on the way to a fire?
I don't know.
This is the difference in, yeah.
Dad's is Burning Down the House by the Talking Heads.
I'm not sure that's his answer, but I'll take Burning Down, Talking Heads, and Journey.
I'll tell you what we were thinking of.
Okay.
Really, when I became an engineer, if you was at 5s, 4s was about four blocks away in a firehouse, and 6s was about 7 or 8 blocks away from the firehouse. And the only thing that was important in those days was be there first. One of our captains on one shift was the brother to the driver on engine 4. And those guys wanted to beat them guys no matter what. And I'm a new engineer, and I'm trying to beat them everywhere we went. And I'd come back to the firehouse and I'd sit there in bed and say, boy, that was really close. But the only thing that was important was speed. We got out of the firehouse, and if you took you 30 seconds from the time they gave you the alarm, you were go too slow. They said, get on the rig. The captain on 5s when I was working there, he says, you just jump in there and get that thing started. And as soon as I hit that door closed, get going. Well, once in a while we'd leave somebody in the firehouse, but big thing was get out of there, beat them. And as I look back on it, I think that was crazy. That was absolutely crazy.
I can't remember the music group, but Pat's is going to be I Can't Drive 55.
There you go. There you go. And it's Van Halen.
Thank you. I thought it was Van Halen.
There you go. Absolutely. Great. Absolutely. Yeah. There's no do like first do. Great answer. Great stories. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Max points. Easy max points. Number 3. This was a question that was asked, actually, quite a few different variations of it. But what is your favorite fire service tradition?
Favorite fire service tradition? You got one?
Without a doubt, going to a fire. Let's get another one. You get back there at 6 o'clock in the morning. We get off at 6:30, and the guys would say, "Let's get one more before we have to go home. Let's go to a fire."
I wish.
Favorite fire service tradition? Oh boy, I don't know. Well, I would say that probably the favorite fire service tradition is just that really good brotherhood that exists where, when I went down to Pensacola, Chief Kurt Isaacson, Chief Rob Fisher, Chief Mark Wesseldine, a number of my friends that came from the Denver Fire Department, Sean Roper, Scott Eccles, Dave Hagman, brothers helping brothers, and brothers being there to support brothers. That's a huge tradition. You guys know. I mean, if somebody on the chat said right now, "Geez, I'm framing a garage on Saturday. Is anybody available?" There's going to be a couple of strike teams and a task force that shows up on Saturday morning to help frame that garage. And within the fire service, there's so much talent. The electrician, the plumber, the framer, the roofer, all those guys, you can get it done at your house. But I think it's the brotherhood that takes care of one another is one of the favorite traditions that I have.
No, I love it. Absolutely, man. This is where you asked earlier what the clock was for. So this one's not really fair to you guys because you didn't get prep. But we're going to run it and we'll see. But it's basically you get to put 4 people. We had to limit it to 4. You get to put 4 people on your Mount Rushmore of the fire service. 4 people. Now you can do it together. You can discuss it together, or you can do 4 apiece, whatever way you want to do it. And we're not even going to run with the clock today. We're just going to let you guys run because this is unprecedented territory that we've never been in before. So whoever wants to answer first, you're going to put 4 people on your Mount Rushmore of the fire service.
Do you want to think of 4, or you want me to think of it first?
I got 4. I'd say that would be Jack Rogers, Jack Finley, and Jack Bailey's name. They're all named Jack. Jack Bailey, and probably what was the driver's name? I can't think. They're all dead, so I can't make their names out. So I can't think of them really. But most of the guys I worked with down the line, some of them you worked with them more, and you knew them a little bit better, and you always knew you could depend on them, and they were always there. Those
Right
3
on.
guys there were really top-notch guys.
I like Jack Rogers, Jack Finley, Jack Bailey. I love it, brother. I love it.
Jack
I
Bailey
love it.
was in World War II. He came back home when about the Korean War broke out, so he went back in and he jumped on he was training Marines, and a kid got a hand grenade and couldn't let it go. Jack told him to throw it down. He threw it down, and Jack jumped on top of it. But luckily he had his coat and everything on, and those other things. And they're not quite like the grenades are thrown overseas like that, but it did blow him up pretty good. He came back like that. So, but
Wow. Yeah, that's
one of those
Hey,
guys.
go ahead. Go ahead. Try to follow your dad. Go ahead.
Can I do a battalion? It'd just be helpful if I could do a battalion, if you don't mind.
We threw all the rules out, so you can do whatever you want.
All the rules out. Pat McGrail would be the first one. Mark Wesseldine would be on that company. The late Andy Fredericks would be on that company for sure. And I'm not going to give a name for the number 4 because there are so many great individuals in this fire service that I've worked with, and firefighters from across the country, that my number 4 position is going to be a position that I would leave for the 100 best firefighters that I've ever had the privilege to work with or be associated with. And obviously there's a number of people on this scrap tonight, not the least of which is you, Brother Corley Moore, that would be included in that. But I cannot give an individual name for the so many great firefighters I worked with on the DFD and the other firefighters that I know around the fire service. So that number 4 spot would be 4 times 100 of great firefighters. And that's what I'm going to have to go with.
We threw the rules out, and everybody's saying max points, max points. And Kyle said, I'm guessing that the 4th person was named Jack. And then someone said Jack's points because max points is always what's given out. But you actually got Jack's points. The unknown number 4, absolute max. And Rob Fisher said, where did I saw it? It's scrolling by so fast. There it is. Nice move, Chief McGrail. Very smart. Very smart. He's been accused of being smart in his life, I'm sure.
Well, thank you.
Final question, which is number 5. It's the question that's been around since the beginning of the 5 questions. You have heavy fire. You have searchable space. Would you rather be assigned to the nozzle or first in going through that window?
Nozzle or going for the search through the window? Which would you rather be?
Well, being on the rescue, it depends on if there's people in there, you're going after the people first. Somebody else is going to have to get the fire. So you're going to try and get to the people that are trapped in there. So I'd say that. If it's just a fire, shoot, I don't know, just go for the fire. If there's nobody in there, we're just going to put water on it. Let's go put water on it.
I love it. I love it.
Since Pat McGrail and his guys are going to go in the window and get that search done, I'm going to follow the lead of our late great brother and mentor, the late Andy Fredericks. We're going to properly place that powerful hand line. It's going to have a People's Choice nozzle on it. I would like to be on the nozzle, and I'd like to get to a position where we can pulverize that fire and save the greatest number of lives by that properly placed hose line and that aggressive attack. And we'll be able to do that because Pat's doing a great aggressive search.
There you go. There you go.
Thinking
That
about
officially,
him and Andy Fredericks, I think he's got a sweater. I got a sweater, one or the other, but it's on the back. It says Andy Fredericks gave it out. It says, if you put the fire out, you don't have to jump out the windows.
solid.
If you put the fire out, you don't have to jump out the windows.
Brothers, I don't think I could have asked for a better duo to come in and share some knowledge. I don't know if you understand how much you've inspired me tonight, because I've got more stuff I'm going to throw at you, Dave and Pat. But all that being said, that officially makes it 257 scraps in the books. And I can't believe, yes, absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Thank you for sharing your evening with us so much, audience and guests. But if someone wants to get a hold of you, the McGrails, what's the best way to do so? Do you want people to get a hold of you?
Absolutely. D. McGrail, DenverFD at MSN.com is my current email address. McGrail Fire Ops. If you're around and want to come down to Houston, please come down to Houston. I have the privilege of joining Chief Ike at Water on the Fire conference coming up here in late August. I have the privilege of going to the Pacific Northwest Fire Conference, sponsored and through Fire Nuggets in October in the Great Northwest. But if anybody needs to get a hold of me, please don't hesitate to my first initial D, my last name McGrail, Denver FD. It's all one word. DMCGRAIL DENVERFD, as in fire department, at MSN.com. Don't hesitate to reach out. And appreciate everybody that was part of this tonight. And Corley, appreciate you not only as a firefighter, but as a husband and a father and as a good man.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to be a part of this. Means a whole lot to me and my dad to be able to share some stuff with great firefighters on this evening.
I love it, man. And I say this all the time is when people say thank you for letting us do, I'm blown away that people say thank you for doing something that is such, that I enjoy so much that it's like, I can't believe people say thank you for it. So all that being said, thank you. That's all I can say about it, but thank you. The Vigilantes, that's the next thing that happens is the after party. When the scrap is over, the Vigilantes meet. We get to roast Dave and Pat. Dave has agreed to graciously be there. And Sam is posting the link. I will share it with our guests, and we get to go in there and we get to roast them on their performance tonight. We'll see if that actually happens. Unbelievable. I'm still recovering. I'm still like, yeah, this is, I'm trying to think. Tomorrow night, Frank Lieb is coming on for the Vigilantes on the forum. It's a forum. It's a giant call where you get to ask Frank Lieb whatever you want to talk to him about. And that is happening tomorrow. So boom, 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 3 days in a row. It's crazy, but we're trying to keep the pace up. Go get signed up if you want to be a part of the Vigilantes. My eyes are like hurting me right now. It's a crazy week. Coming up, 2024 is continuing in style. Sam's posting a link. All of that's being said. All right, we'll just talk in the after party. Everybody, I love you all. Audience, thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in and hanging out and sending unbelievably good questions at these unbelievably awesome guests who filled them in fantastic manner. You make the scrap magical each and every week. Thank you for being here. Dave and Pat, thank you for sharing your evening with us.
Thank you.
It was amazing. Everybody, I hope the tones stay silent unless it is burning. Everybody stay safe out there.